Meet Emma Collins, a 28-year-old marketing professional living in Austin, Texas. Emma had always been the quiet one in the Collins family, polite, hardworking, and invisible at the loudest family gatherings. Tonight, the smell of roast chicken and fresh apple pie fills the dining room, but Emma feels a familiar pang of exclusion. Her cousins are laughing over stories from their recent trips, her younger brother shows off his promotion at work, and her parents exchange glances as if silently approving everyone else's accomplishments, except hers. "Emma, why don't you just sit in the corner tonight?" her mother says lightly, waving toward the far end of the dining table. Her tone is casual, almost dismissive, but it hits Emma like a cold gust of wind. She forces a smile, nodding, and moves to the designated corner chair. Inside, a spark ignites. Emma's mind races. "I've let them underestimate me for too long." Her frustration simmers into determination. She watches her family enjoying themselves, silently planning. This isn't just another night. This is the night she decides she will no longer be old news in her own life. A quiet, calculating smile forms on her lips, one that hints at the changes she's about to make. She lifts her glass of water, pretending to toast her family while silently toasting herself. The evening air in Emma Collins' house was thick with laughter and chatter, but for Emma, every word felt like a spotlight on her shortcomings. Her older brother Ryan couldn't resist the opportunity to mock her. "Emma, did you really forget your presentation again?" he asked loudly, smirking as everyone at the table chuckled. Emma forced a polite smile, her hands gripping her fork tighter than necessary. She looked to her mother, Karen, hoping for intervention, but Karen simply sipped her wine, offering Ryan an encouraging nod instead. The silence stung more than the words. Across the table, her younger sister, Lily, shot Emma a sympathetic glance. Lily's eyes spoke volumes. "I see it too. This isn't fair." It was the only comfort Emma felt that night. Later, Emma stepped outside for a breath of air. Walking through the quiet streets of Austin, she noticed other families enjoying the evening. Children rode bikes along the sidewalks, neighbors chatted and laughed in their yards, and somewhere nearby, a father tossed a football to his son. Emma's chest tightened. She felt trapped under the weight of judgment, while life's ordinary joys seemed just out of reach. As she returned to the house, snippets of conversations lingered in her mind. Neighbors remarking on her quiet, reserved nature, cousins whispering about her indecisiveness, relatives subtly questioning her career choices. Each word was a pinprick, slowly fueling a fire Emma had long kept under wraps. Sitting in her room later that night, she replayed every slight, every smirk, every dismissive comment. Memories of past humiliations flickered through her mind, the times she had been overlooked, ridiculed, or told she was too soft to make a difference. But tonight something shifted. "I can't change their minds by being angry. I need strategy, not emotion." Emma whispered to herself, tracing the edge of her journal. Every action from now on had to be deliberate, every step calculated. Her mind began assembling a plan, subtle yet powerful, one that would make her presence undeniable without ever seeming impulsive. She wasn't just angry, she was prepared. And this preparation, this careful planning, would be the key to turning the tables. The next morning, Emma retreated to her small apartment in East Austin, shutting the door on the judgmental eyes and laughter of her family. The apartment was modest but cozy, a space that felt entirely hers. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, letting the city hum beneath her as her mind raced. Her phone buzzed. It was Maya, her best friend since college. "Emma, you sound tense. What happened last night?" Maya asked, concern lacing her voice. Emma hesitated, then recounted the dinner scene. The mocking, the exclusion, the sting of being overlooked yet again. "You know," Maya said after a pause, "getting revenge doesn't mean losing control. You need intelligence, strategy, not impulse. Think of it like a chess game." Emma's lips curled into a small smile. "Chess, huh, I like that." Within the hour, they were sitting in a small cafe down the street, sipping coffee and spreading notebooks across the table. Emma outlined everything: Ryan's arrogance, Karen's favoritism, the subtle undermining by relatives, the casual judgments of neighbors. Maya listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. Step 1, Emma said, tapping her pen, expose Ryan's arrogance but subtly. Make the local community aware of how he acts without it looking like I'm attacking him. And step 2, Maya prompted. Showcase my own achievements, not boastfully. Just let them see my successes naturally in ways they can't ignore. Maya nodded, good and confrontations. You'll need a plan for those two, calm, collected, unshakable. Emma's fingers traced the edge of her journal. Each page was filled with memories of past slights, embarrassing moments at family gatherings, dismissive comments, her failures being exaggerated in front of others. But now those memories weren't just painful, they were tools. Each hurt became a potential move in the strategy she was crafting. I've underestimated my own patience, she whispered. But no more, every action counts, every detail matters. Maya smiled. Exactly, you're not just reacting, you're preparing, and the best part, they won't see it coming. As Emma left the cafe, her determination felt almost tangible. The city streets seemed different now, not threatening, but full of possibilities. She was ready to take careful, calculated steps. Every observation, every note, every quiet moment alone was shaping her plan. By the time she returned to her apartment, the outline of her strategy was complete. Emma felt a surge of confidence, knowing she was no longer just a bystander in her own life. Emma decided her first move would be subtle but undeniable. She started with Ryan, her overconfident older brother. He often bragged about his latest, successful projects at work and exaggerated his social connections, thinking no one would question him. Emma, however, had quietly collected evidence and anecdotes, proof of inconsistencies in his stories. Walking through the streets of Austin, she began casual conversations with neighbors and family friends. Did Ryan really get that promotion at the tech firm? She asked lightly while watering her small front garden. Oh, Emma, said Mrs. Henderson, a neighbor, I thought so too, but I heard the project didn't go as smoothly as he said. Strange, isn't it? Emma nodded, smiling subtly. She didn't need to push the topic. She just let the seed of doubt grow naturally. Back home, she started dropping subtle hints on social media, pictures from events Ryan claimed he attended, tagged with comments hinting at his absence, or sharing articles about failed projects that mirrored the exaggerations he boasted about. Friends and distant relatives began noticing. Whispers started circulating during casual family gatherings. At the weekend barbecue, Emma's aunt leaned toward her mother, whispering, "Did you notice Ryan's story about the fundraiser? Seems a bit off, doesn't it?" Karen frowned, exchanging a glance with Ryan, who suddenly looked uncomfortable. Emma, sitting quietly nearby, took a slow sip of her iced tea, her face calm and composed. She didn't need to gloat, the tension in the air said enough. Even in casual confrontations, Emma maintained her composure. Ryan, realizing people were starting to question him, tried to defend himself. I meant it differently," he stammered to a small group of neighbors. Emma only smiled politely. "Oh, I understand," she said softly. Her calmness contrasted sharply with his flustered demeanor, and the shift in power was palpable. By the end of the week, Emma had quietly dismantled Ryan's inflated reputation, not with anger, but with strategy, patience, and observation. Each small victory added to her confidence, reinforcing her belief that careful planning could change the balance of power within her family and community. For the first time, Emma felt a thrill of control, the satisfaction of a plan working, and the anticipation of the next step. She knew bigger moves were coming, and now the audience could sense it too. Her intelligence and resilience were becoming undeniable. The next afternoon, Emma's phone buzzed with a message she hadn't expected. It was from her estranged father, David, who had left the family when she was 10. "Emma, can we meet? There's something I need to say." Her heart raced. Part of her wanted to ignore it to stay focused on her plan, but another part, her longing for closure, couldn't resist. She agreed to meet him at a small cafe in downtown Austin, a neutral space where the hum of coffee machines and murmured conversations masked private emotions. When David arrived, he looked older than she remembered, lines etched deeply on his face. His eyes softened when he saw her. "Emma," he began, voice trembling slightly, "I know I left when you were little. I wasn't there, and I missed so much of your life. I'm sorry." Emma felt a knot in her chest, memories flooding back. The nights she cried alone, her mother struggling to fill the void, the whispered questions from neighbors about her father's absence. I don't know if I can forgive you," she admitted, stirring her coffee. "I've spent years feeling invisible even after you left." David nodded, pain evident. "I understand, I can't undo the past, but I want you to know I'm proud of the woman you've become. I see your strength." Emma blinked, tears threatening. She remembered a middle school recital where she stood alone on stage, her father absent, and how she had promised herself she'd never be powerless again. I've been trying to prove myself," she whispered, her voice shaky. "Not just to them, but to myself. And sometimes I wonder if revenge will ever fill the gap that's been left inside me." David reached across the table, his hand hovering over hers. "Emma, seeking respect is natural, but don't let bitterness define you. Your actions can be powerful without being destructive. Choose carefully." The conversation lingered in her mind as she walked back through the streets of Austin. Flashbacks intertwined with present thoughts, family dinners where she had been ignored, whispered insults from cousins, and yet moments of love she had quietly treasured. For the first time, Emma realized her revenge wasn't just about anger. It was about acknowledgement, respect, and reclaiming her place in the family she had always longed to belong to. Her plan would continue, but now it was tempered with humanity, emotion, and careful moral judgment. The audience could see her complexity, a woman both calculating and vulnerable, determined yet reflective. Emma's next moves would be strategic, but her heart was no longer numb. Emma's transformation was no longer subtle. It was deliberate, calculated, and growing harder to ignore. Leveraging her marketing connections at work, she subtly showcased her expertise, ensuring that her accomplishments reached a wider audience, including family friends who followed her professional updates. Social media became her silent ally. Carefully curated posts hinted at her successes and intelligence without overt boasting. At a midweek lunch in downtown Austin, Emma met with a trusted business mentor. "You're positioning yourself perfectly," he said, reviewing her project updates. "Subtle influence, quiet power, people notice even when they think they don't." Emma nodded, sipping her coffee. "I don't want confrontation, just acknowledgement. I want them to see me as I am, not as who they think I am." Her plan extended into public spaces as well. At the local shopping center, she ran into Ryan, who immediately tried to dominate the conversation with exaggerated stories of his recent business deal. Emma listened patiently, letting him speak, while discreetly engaging other shoppers and neighbors who had witnessed Ryan's inconsistencies. His charm faded under the subtle scrutiny, and he left feeling frustrated and unsettled. Back at home, private family moments reflected the shift even more sharply. Karen, her mother, remarked casually, "Emma, I noticed the presentation you gave last week. It was impressive." Emma smiled politely, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She no longer sought validation openly, but the recognition, however small, felt like victory. Even in tense discussions with relatives, Emma remained composed. "I appreciate your concern," she said softly during a family brunch, when her cousin hinted she was overthinking her career. "I'm making sure I understand every angle before acting." The calm confidence in her tone left the family momentarily speechless. Every calculated move heightened tension. Emma was no longer the timid, overlooked daughter. They could see the intelligence, poise, and resilience she had long hidden. Whispers spread. Family friends commented, neighbors observed, and even Ryan's arrogance began to crack under the weight of subtle exposure. For the audience, the anticipation grew. Each scene hinted at a looming confrontation. Emma's careful strategy had set the stage. The tension was no longer just in her mind, it had spread to everyone around her. With every step, every calculated word, Emma edged closer to reclaiming the respect and acknowledgement she had always deserved. The Collins family gathered in Emma's backyard in Austin for a Sunday brunch, unaware that today would be unlike any other family gathering. The sun cast warm light across the table, but the atmosphere was tense, thick with unspoken anticipation. Emma walked to the table confidently, holding her coffee, her posture straight and eyes unwavering. Ryan, her older brother, immediately started with his usual bravado. "Emma, I hope you didn't forget to bring your notes for last week's project recap," he said, smirking. Emma met his gaze calmly. "Actually, Ryan, I prepared something more comprehensive this time. Perhaps you'd like to see it." Her voice was measured, confident, and it immediately silenced him. Karen, her mother, finally noticed the difference. "Emma, you've really changed," she said softly, a hint of surprise in her tone. Emma's eyes softened but remained resolute. "I've learned a lot, Mom. I realized I was letting myself be underestimated for too long. That stops now." Neighbors and extended family, sitting nearby on lawn chairs, exchanged glances. Whispers of surprise and admiration spread quietly among them. Ryan tried to regain control. "Well, I think you're making a big deal out of nothing." Emma interrupted, calm but firm. "No, Ryan, this isn't a big deal. It's recognition of the truth. All these years I've been patient, observing, planning, and proving myself quietly. Now it's clear, underestimating me was your mistake, not mine." A hush fell over the backyard. Cousins who had once dismissed her now watched with respect, neighbors nodded subtly, and even Karen seemed struck by her daughter's poise. "I remember every slight, every dismissive comment, and every moment I was ignored," Emma continued, her voice steady but emotional. "But today, I stand here not out of anger, but out of the need for acknowledgement. I deserve respect, just like anyone else in this family." Ryan's face flushed red. He opened his mouth but couldn't find words. Karen reached out, but Emma gently shook her head. "Mom, this is not about punishment. It's about change for all of us." Her strategic planning had culminated perfectly. Each small move, every careful hint, every subtle exposure had built to this moment. Emma's transformation from meek, overlooked daughter to a confident, respected woman was undeniable. The audience could feel the payoff of her long-term strategy. Tension, anticipation, and satisfaction all converged in a single, powerful confrontation. The day after the confrontation, the atmosphere in the Collins household in Austin was quieter but charged with reflection. Emma noticed subtle changes. Ryan no longer tried to overshadow her conversations, and Karen seemed more thoughtful in her words. At breakfast, Karen finally spoke, her voice tinged with humility. "Emma, I realize now how much we underestimated you. I'm proud of how you've handled everything." Emma smiled gently. "Thank you, Mom. I don't want to shame anyone. I just wanted to be seen for who I am." Ryan shifted uncomfortably but met her gaze. "Emma, I can see now I misjudged you," he admitted, his tone reluctant but sincere. "I've got a lot to learn about respect, and you've taught me that quietly but clearly." Lily, her younger sister, beamed. "I always knew you could do it, Emma. I'm proud of you." The pride in her eyes warmed Emma's heart. The smallest acknowledgement felt monumental after years of being overlooked. Emma's influence extended beyond the walls of her home. Walking through Austin's streets that afternoon, she noticed neighbors nodding in recognition of her professional achievements. Friends who had supported her quietly celebrated milestones she shared on social media. The validation was subtle but meaningful, a testament to her careful, strategic approach. Even in private moments, Emma maintained her dignity and composure. She had achieved respect without public humiliation or unnecessary confrontation, proving her intelligence and restraint. Every carefully executed step, planning, subtle exposure, and measured responses had led to this equilibrium. The audience could sense Emma's growth. Her revenge was not born solely from anger, but from a deep desire for acknowledgement and justice. She had balanced strategy with compassion, proving that power could be asserted without cruelty. By evening, as Emma sat on her apartment balcony overlooking the city, she reflected on the journey. The skyline glimmered with possibility, mirroring the new balance in her life. She had claimed her rightful place, earning both respect and admiration while maintaining her integrity. Her story was a quiet victory, one that resonated far beyond the Collins household, showcasing the maturity, patience, and brilliance of a woman who refused to be overlooked again. Emma strolled along Congress Avenue in downtown Austin, the sun setting over the skyline, painting the city in golden hues. The familiar streets, once filled with memories of exclusion and quiet humiliation, now felt like a backdrop to her triumph. Every step reminded her of how far she had come. I was invisible for too long, she thought. Ignored, underestimated, dismissed, but not anymore. Flashbacks flickered in her mind. The family dinner where she had been told to sit in the corner, Ryan's mocking smirks, the casual glances from relatives that made her feel small. The contrast with her current confidence was striking. Stopping at a small cafe, she met Lily for coffee. "You've really changed, Emma," Lily said, smiling warmly. "Not just in what you do, but in how you carry yourself. You're fearless." Emma laughed softly, stirring her cup. "It wasn't easy. I had to be patient, think carefully, and control my reactions. Revenge was never the goal. It was about proving to myself that I deserved respect and reclaiming my own power." Her friend Maya joined via video call later that evening. "I watched your posts, Emma, and seeing the way you handled your family, it's inspiring. You didn't just strike back, you grew stronger in the process." Emma nodded, her eyes scanning the bustling streets below. "Exactly. Every small step I took wasn't just strategic, it was about personal growth. I've learned patience, courage, and the importance of self-respect. I realize now that the journey itself mattered more than the victory." Passing by familiar landmarks, the Capitol building, the murals downtown, Emma reflected on how her life had changed. Her family's recognition, neighbors' subtle nods, and friends' quiet admiration all underscored her success, yet her internal transformation was the most profound. "I'm no longer defined by their judgments," she whispered to herself. "And I know the story doesn't end here. Life will throw challenges, but now I face them with strategy, confidence, and clarity." The audience witnesses Emma's evolution. From the timid, overlooked daughter to a self-assured, reflective woman who has mastered patience, intelligence, and emotional strength. Though her story with her family may have reached resolution, her journey, full of growth, insight, and potential future challenges, remains open, leaving room for new chapters. Emma stood on the balcony of her Austin apartment, the sun dipping behind the skyline, painting the city in hues of orange and pink. The streets below were alive with movement, laughter, and the quiet rhythm of life continuing as always. Yet for Emma, everything had shifted. She had reclaimed her dignity, asserted her intelligence, and earned the respect she had long been denied. As the wind brushed against her face, she reflected on the journey, from the humiliating family dinners to the careful strategies that subtly exposed Ryan's arrogance, and the quiet victories that had reshaped her place in her family. "I'm no longer old news," she thought, smiling softly. "I've become the headline of my own life." Later, she met Lily for a short walk along Lady Bird Lake, the water shimmering under the setting sun. "You've really changed, Emma," Lily said, glancing at her sister. "Not just in confidence, but in how you see yourself. It's inspiring." Emma nodded. "It wasn't easy. I could have let anger control me, but I chose strategy and patience. And I realized something important: whether to seek revenge or forgive isn't a question about others, it's about who I want to be." They paused, watching the sun dip behind the cityscape. Emma's eyes were steady, calm, and reflective. "I had every reason to be bitter," she continued, "but reclaiming respect didn't have to come at the cost of compassion. I've grown stronger, wiser, and more aware of my own worth. As they walked back toward the city streets, Emma felt the final weight of past humiliation lift. Her steps were confident, measured, and purposeful. Every glance, every nod, every subtle acknowledgement around her now reinforced the truth she had fought to embody. She was no longer invisible. For the audience, the story closes with a question that resonates. Would you take revenge or forgive? Emma's journey illustrates that empowerment isn't solely about defeating others. It's about discovering oneself, balancing strategy with compassion, and emerging with dignity intact. The camera pans one last time over the city's skyline as Emma walks into her future. The glow of the sunset symbolizing hope, self-discovery, and the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Her story is resolved, yet open, inviting viewers to reflect, comment, and share their own choices in the delicate dance between revenge and forgiveness.